Hi there. My name is Brendan, and today I'm going to walk you through getting started with the Unity game engine and kind of what it is in a brief overview. So, Unity is a game engine, which game engines are used for a lot more than just gaming, as the name does not imply, funnily enough. And you have a couple of different options when wanting to use a game engine, especially for extended reality. There's, of course, Unity, which will be the main focus of today. There's Unreal Engine, and there's also the Godot engine. Each one has its benefits and its downsides, and it's kind of worth weighing. Unreal Engine does have a lot more graphic fidelity quite easily. However, it is a lot more resource intensive and requires a stronger computer. The Godot engine is open source and free, but that there is not a ton of resources readily available, especially for beginners. The Office of the Vice President typically uses Unreal Engine for a lot of their virtual reality work, as it is compatible with a wide array of computers because it doesn't require as much resources and has a lot of community resources provided for different developer purposes, whether you're doing virtual reality, augmented reality, standard video games, or some type of other animation or rendering. So to begin, you'll need to click Get Started. Then from here, you can choose Individual, and then in this case, you can either choose Student or Personal, depending on your needs. Just keep in mind there are some eligibility requirements that you just want to make sure you meet. Additionally, if you are part of a team, there are some different plans that can be purchased, but this is something that you'll need to discuss with your department and whoever else is on your team. From here, then, that will download the Unity Hub, which is this software here. In Unity Hub, you'll see a couple of different tabs. So first off, we have projects here, which this is going to show all of your recent projects. In your case, you probably will not have anything here. Instead, it might say, add a version of Unity or something along those lines. Then there is the Learn tab, which provides you with a bunch of different tutorials and resources for learning Unity. All of these are very well done and definitely worth checking out, in addition to the tutorials that are being provided by the OVPR. If you click on Community, you can also find other different resources, such as the forums if you have a specific question, blog for updates, and a few other different items. Then in installs is where you're going to actually manage the different versions of Unity that have been installed. All versions of Unity will have a year tag here, so we can see here it's 2020. Then they'll have two version numbers, so 2020.3.16. And you'll also notice this LTS, that's for long-term support, which means that any bugs found in, say, like Unity 2021.1 will be backlogged into this LTS as long as it's still supported. You won't have any of these when you first open up, so you'll have to choose Add. From the Add panel, there's a couple of different options. If you are needing to find a very specific version, you can also choose the Download Archive. Say, for instance, you got a project from someone else on campus and need to open that project up. You could find that version, whatever version that project was made in from the Download Archive. In most cases, you'll want to just choose one of the LTS versions. The recommended release is usually fine. You may have a reason to go back to one of these older releases depending on your situation, but in general, just choose the recommended release. You can then click Next, and then if you have other type of build needs, such as you need to make sure that you're building something for iOS or for Android, you can. You'll notice here that there are a large amount of different platform supported. Unity is capable of building for a variety of different consoles, as well as both Android and iOS mobile devices. Additionally, if you're using a standalone headset such as the Oculus VR system, you'll want to choose Android build support as well. It may also install the Microsoft Visual Studio Community 2019. I personally like Visual Studio. This is the integrated development environment that Unity will automatically open up whenever you are scripting and creating C# components. If you have a different IDE that you prefer, you can manually link that in Unity as well. For now, though, I do recommend just installing Microsoft Visual Studio Community. From here, then, Once you've installed a version of Unity and you're ready to create a project, you can come up here and you can go ahead and click New. If you have a project that you need to find on your computer, you can click Add and it'll open up a standard file browser. If you click on this down button, you can select the version of Unity you want. If you just click New, it'll just use the newest version, I believe. So in this case, I'll just choose the 2020.3.1 and it'll open up with this Create New Project for Unity panel. There are a couple of different options you have, and you'll notice here there are a bunch of other templates, such as Mobile 2D, Augmented Reality, Virtual Reality. In general, I don't use the templates because they will also install a bunch of other extra items that you don't necessarily need. Typically, I'll just choose 2D or 3D depending on my requirements. In most cases for virtual or augmented reality, you'll want 3D. So I'll just make sure that's selected. Then here I can name this, and I will name this Intro to Unity, and then I'm just going to select where I want it to be saved. Once you've selected where it wants to be saved, you can go ahead and click Create. It will take a moment to compile all the scripts and get the project set up for you. So once that is loaded in, you should see a screen somewhat similar to mine. Keep in mind that all of these panels can be moved around. I'll leave them as is for now, but you can always move these panels around and reconfigure as needed. So we're going to go real quick over all of the different panels that you're going to see here and just kind of cover what they do. The first one is going to be your scene panel, which you can right click and drag to look around. You click to left click to select, and then middle mouse button to pan. And this is pretty standard. You can also zoom to scrolling out, and this will be a pretty standard kind of 3D work environment. You'll see here we have kind of this blank environment here, and then we have a couple of different things that we can click on. We currently have a main camera and a light. You'll notice as I'm selecting between these two, over here in the hierarchy panel, they are being selected. This is basically just a list of everything that's currently in our scene, and we can just kind of click and toggle between the two. You'll notice on this right side, as I select on this inspector, you'll see different items. You'll see kind of different contextual items depending on what I have selected. So right now with the directional light selected, I have a transform and a light component that's on this object. If I select the main camera, I will then have transform and camera. These are going to be the different components that are currently attached to that game object, which is just any type of object that's within your current Unity scene. And it'll have contextual items depending on the components here. So in this case, it'll have different options for a camera. In this case, for the directional light, it'll have different options for lighting. We also have down here, we have our project panel. The project panel is where we're going to import and bring in different elements such as sounds, music, 3D models, textures, images, those types of items. So really anything that you might need to use to actually build your experience, it will show up in here. Currently, we only have a scenes folder, and if we double click on that, we will get this sample scene. You'll notice too the inspector is updating, but I don't really have any options for these. That is because the inspector will show you elements for whatever you have selected in the project panel or in the hierarchy. So currently our scene is somewhat blank, so we can go ahead and add in some basic geometry using Unity itself. So if we right click here, we have a couple of different options for adding elements so that we can choose 3D and cube. And that will then plop a cube right in here. We have our position items, so I'm going to actually go ahead and reset the position to 0, 0, 0. You are also able to click on this plus item to add objects, or you can click on game object as well, and that'll just automatically add it to the scene. So now we have this cube in our scene. And we can also go to this game panel and we can actually see a preview of whatever the main camera is seeing. So right now we can see our cube that is being rendered by the main camera. We can see that same preview down here. So we just kind of added this cube in. There's a couple of different other 3D elements such as a sphere, a capsule, a cylinder. I'll go ahead and add in a plane to serve as sort of like a flooring. I'll just drop this down a little bit as well. So we'll drop this down to -0.5. So now we have this cube sitting on top of this plane that we can then see from our game view. So you'll notice too that it automatically defaults to kind of this white texture. We can add in our own custom materials to actually color these in. So we'll go ahead down here and choose Create Folder. This is just so I make sure I'm nice and organized, and I'm going to name this Materials. The reason I like to add in these folders is because, especially as you're adding more and more into this, it can definitely get a little crazy a little quickly. But then in here, I'll just right-click, and then similar to creating the folder, we'll choose Create, and then Material. You'll notice there's a bunch of other different ones. Each of these may or may not be used depending on your needs, but for now, we'll just worry about Material. And I'm going to go ahead and name this Red. So this is going to be a Unity standard material, which is a very powerful tool. Over here, we will have the contextual settings for the material. We have albedo, metallic, smoothness, normal map, height map, occlusion, detail, emission, tiling, and a bunch of other different settings. The albedo is going to be the base color, which can also be a color map. So a color map is going to be basically just an image. So for instance, like video game models where they have, like a character's, skin texture, or like a race car with like different, flames or something along those lines, that will actually have a image that's associated with it that can be dropped in here under this map. In our case, though, I don't have anything like that, so I'm just going to go ahead and select a kind of deep red color for myself. And you'll notice here that the previews have updated, so the preview down here as well as the preview here. We can then define how metallic this is and how smooth it is. A metallic value of 1 is going to be something like brushed steel, whereas a metallic value of 0 is going to be kind of like wood or something along those lines. So that you can think of this as how metallic is the actual object itself. So we'll give it a little bit of a metallic property. Then smoothness is going to be, how smooth it is. If we drop it all the way down, you can see that it's very matte. This would be something like, just like drywall or something along those lines. And if we go all the way up, you can see that it looks like polished steel. So I'll kind of put this somewhere kind of in the upper middle area. Then we also have normal maps, height maps, and occlusion maps, and detail masks. These are going to be created using another software such as Blender or some other Substance Painter or some other type of 3D art program. Normal maps are going to allow you to create details on surfaces and different textures. Same thing with height maps and a bunch of these other ones. For now, we'll just leave this as kind of the color and the metallic and smoothness. You also have the option for emission, which allows you to create glowing elements. So if we were to select this, we could choose sort of like a glow color, and you'll notice that this is updated now to kind of have this white hue on it. I'm going to actually deactivate this because I don't want that to have, but that is kind of a fun feature you can do. And you can ignore most of these other ones since we don't have any type of maps. We then want to actually apply this to something in our scene. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this to our cube. And to do that, we can just click and drag onto the cube, and now we have this, red cube in the middle of our scene. And then if we hit the game view, we can now see that. So in addition to the different elements that we just added in using Unity, this red material, we can also bring in things from the Unity Asset Store. In order to access the Unity Asset Store, you will open up a web browser, and then you can just find the Unity Asset Store. And if we open this up, we'll see a bunch of different assets within here. Some of which will be free, some of which will be paid. For instance, we can come in here and say we wanted some type of environmental models, so we can come in here and check out environments. You'll notice that some of these are paid, but we can come over here and expand the pricing, and you can select just the free assets. And you'll be able to browse through here and kind of take a look at the different ones. Say, for instance, I want this 3D free modular kit because I like the science fiction-y kind of interior here. We can take a look at all of these. You'll notice you'll have a bunch of different kind of previews. Sometimes they'll have videos. In this case, it's just images. and then an advertisement for other products. In this case then, once you've signed in, you can go ahead and click Add to My Assets, and that'll automatically add it to your actual assets themselves. You'll notice here I've been signed in. So click Add to My Assets. You'll need to scroll through the EULA, just make sure you actually skim through this and read through. You can click Accept once you agree to it. And then from here we can choose Open in Unity or Go to My Assets. If we click Go to My Assets, it'll show you all of the different assets that you have, as well as allow you to open in Unity. So I'm going to go ahead and allow this to open in Unity. And then here it'll automatically open up the package manager for us, which if you ever need to access, you can go to File, which if you ever need to access, you can go to Window and then Package Manager. In this case, then we can then make sure that my assets are selected. I'll expand that to be 100 because I have quite a bit, and then we can scroll through and actually find that asset that we just got, which was the 3D Free Modular Kit. So I'll choose 3D Free Modular Kit and click Download. It might take a moment to actually download the files to your computer. Once it's downloaded, we'll need to actually import it. So once it's been downloaded, you can go ahead and click Import. It'll pop up with this Import Unity Package dialog here. And you can scroll through and see all of the different things that are going to be brought in. You can also say, for instance, I didn't want a test map. I could uncheck that. In general, it is recommended that you do bring in everything if you're not quite sure what you're using. You don't want to end up accidentally deselecting something that breaks everything. But in this case, I'm going to deselect that because I know I probably don't need their test map, and click Import. This, like downloading, will take a moment to actually complete. So once this has been imported, I'm going to go ahead and close this. And now we can see we have this new folder that's been added in. We can come in here and we can kind of look through these. You'll see we have a couple of different folders that have been brought in. We have meshes, prefabs, and textures. The meshes are going to be the base models with no color or textures applied. You can see here we do have materials to actually add onto those. The textures are going to be different images used for creating textures. So in this case, these are going to be like a metallic map, and here we can see the normal map. So if we were creating a shader or a material for this, we could click and drag the normal map into that normal map section. And then we have prefabs. These are going to be kind of created for us, ready to go models. You are able to create your own prefabs, which we will discuss in just a moment. But now we can go ahead and click and drag these different elements in. So I'll drag this in and then bring this, didn't mean to do that. And then just kind of position this where I want to. So we have this kind of fan looking thing. I'm gonna just set this to 0, 0, 0 for now. And then I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up, and then I will select the rotate tool, and I'm just gonna rotate this 90 degrees. Let me reset the position again. And I will go ahead and kind of move this up again and over. And now if we go into our game view, we'll see this fan here along with our cube. And so we have plenty of other different items that we can drag in. So we have like a wall, which is currently backwards for us. So we have this wall that we can bring in, a couple of different items such as a door with this window on it, and different elements that we can then bring in, sort of drop in and position as needed. And kind of play around with sort of using these as building blocks to add in. As I mentioned, it is possible to create your own prefabs. So in this case, I'm going to go into this folder, click Create, or into my Assets panel, right-click Create Folder, and I'm going to name this Prefabs. As I mentioned, prefabs are going to be a very powerful tool for you, because what prefabs allow you to do is they allow you to create multiple instances of the same object. So say we had this cube and we wanted a bunch of them. It is possible to right-click, choose 3D object, and create a bunch of cubes, then apply the red materials to them. but a much faster way would be to create a prefab. So in this case, in order to create a prefab, I'm just going to select this cube and I will just drag it into the project panel. That'll automatically create a prefab for us, and we'll know it's a prefab once this has turned blue here. Then what we can do is, just like those other models I dragged in, we can just click and drag these into our scene and we can place as many cubes as we want. So this allows us to repeatedly add different items, but what is also useful is we can come in here and say, for instance, we actually wanted the cube to be a little smaller. We can come in here, double click, and it'll allow us to just edit this cube by itself. So I can come in here and say I wanted the cube to actually be 0.25 by 0.25 by 0.25. I can then save that and go back to my scene, and you'll see that they've all automatically updated. So I'm able to update each one accordingly. So prefabs are going to be a very, very powerful tool for you. Additionally, we can do things such as go into the materials, change the color of that, and it'll update all of them. So hopefully that kind of gets you a little bit acquainted with Unity itself, and kind of just how to navigate this 3D space. In future videos, we will be covering topics such as how to add in different interactions, as well as a little bit of scripting, so keep an eye out for those ones.